An entitled bus driver is constantly bullying me every time I come up to the shuttle, as he likes to try and drive off without me, even though he sees me approaching his bus. And after having this happen so many times, as well as reporting him to the university that I go to, I'm now at my breaking point because I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I don't know if I would call what he is doing bullying or not, but all I know is that he does not like me. For reference, I work at a university that has an extensive shuttle system around the campus and around the city. And as part of my commute, I take one of the many shuttles to the building I work in. There's an app that tracks the shuttle location and shows the stop locations as well. Anyways, one day I was approaching the bus stop where I saw one of the shuttles sitting there parked, and the drivers often take 5 to 10 minute breaks at particular stops along their route. And when I looked at the app, it said that the bus wasn't supposed to reach its destination a few blocks away for another 10 minutes. So I figured I would have time to get to the crosswalk and cross the street to get to the shuttle. When I did and got on the bus, the driver, let's call him George, not his real name, who is one of these fake Sam Elliott wannabes, scoffed at me and said, "You could have just cut across the street, kid. There was nobody coming." But I told him that even though nobody's on the street, I wasn't gonna jaywalk because it's dangerous. I mean, common sense, right? Well, George didn't think so. He laughed and warned me not to think I could take my sweet time catching up to the shuttle because he had a schedule to keep and was told not to waste his time. I asked him when he was planning on departing because I was going off what the app said, but he said it didn't matter because he could have been leaving at any minute and that I was lucky he let me on at the stop he was scheduled to be at that time. Now, I didn't want to continue the stupid argument, so I just said I'm not jaywalking and then I took my seat. We ended up sitting at the stop for another 5 minutes before he left, so why would he tell me to do something that could have gotten me hurt? The next day, I arrive at the same crosswalk at the same time, and there's George sitting parked in the shuttle across the street waiting. He sees me and gets this weird smirk on his face. Despite the app saying he wasn't going to arrive to the next stop 2 blocks away for 10 minutes, he all of a sudden grabs the steering wheel and turns on his blinker, despite not being able to go until I crossed the street because he was at a red light. I stepped into the shuttle and he says, "What would have happened if I drove off just now?" And when he said that, I looked at him with bewilderment. I just said to him, I would have waited for another shuttle, and then I sat down. He scoffs again and takes off immediately, making it to the next stop and sitting there for his break instead. The third interaction that we had, he was ready to peel off, but the red light gave me the time it took to get across the street and approach the bus door. But this time, he didn't even look at me when I got on, instead telling me rudely to sit down. I barely had a chance to do so before he started moving the shuttle. This time, I plainly asked him what the issue was with me, since I offended him in some kind of way. I don't know what I did, and to that he said, "You waste so much of my time at the crosswalk, kid. You could just cross the street." At this point, I was genuinely confused and asked him if the bus schedule needs to be updated, if he really needs to leave that stop so urgently. He replied, "That's not the point. If I'm waiting, you hurry up, even if I'm not waiting for you." At this point, I realized I was arguing with someone who got some kind of weird power trip out of driving a shuttle. I told him that you should never encourage someone to break laws just to catch a bus, and he just didn't even answer me when I said that. After that exchange, every time he sees me approaching the crosswalk to the stop, he suddenly ends his brake and drives away from the light the minute the light turns green. If there are other people at the stop with me, he'll scowl at me when I get on and act really put upon when other people thank him once he reaches their stop. I mean, it's just so stupid. I've tried to memorize which bus numbers he drives, but with the university shuffling around employees due to various layoffs and funding issues, he's been surprising me at other stops. Sometimes he'll see me at a stop waiting and go, or stop a couple of bus links away from the stop just to make me jog to the shuttle, or he will pretend not to see me at the stop if I'm alone and drive right past me until I wave him down. I have reported him to the university, but I get no response other than the fact that they say they're looking into it. I've also started using other lines and stops than the one he typically stops at, but like I said, he surprises me sometimes. My job is too far from the bus stops my commute usually takes me to, so unless I feel like running, the shuttles are the most viable option. Regardless of my options, I shouldn't feel victimized for wanting to ride a bus. It's all just really weird, and I seriously don't know what to do. Wow, this guy's a massive jerk. Like, he's not only having a power trip as you described, but he's also trying to like lord over you in some kind of way. And that just doesn't make any sense. Like, seriously, just leave the original poster alone. They're just trying to go to work and you're making things weird. In my opinion, I think it wouldn't be a bad idea to start recording every interaction you have getting to that bus, because clearly a written report is just not working for these people. You need some kind of like visual evidence to like show on social media and be like, like, hey, this bus driver is literally bullying me. They're causing nothing but problems in my life and I'm sick of it. So hopefully this gets figured out sooner than later, because this bus driver sounds insane and there's no reason for you to be treated that way in the slightest. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. I caught my boyfriend flirting through text messaging with another girl once again, and after dealing with this several times with other women, I'm honestly at my breaking point and I seriously now don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I've been with my boyfriend for about 4 years. We have certainly had our ups and downs through our time together, as any couple does, but this issue has resurfaced one too many times. Once again, last night, I found my boyfriend messaging a girl. While at first I try to give him the benefit of the doubt and think maybe he's messaging them because he needs help with schoolwork because they are from his class, but I could tell it was flirtatious on his part. He was sending selfies of himself, asking what she's up to, and told her that he only sits in class where he does because of her, and would even hint at hanging out with her later, or even just complimenting her in general. I admittedly snooped on his phone while he was asleep. I mean, curiosity just killed the cat, and I saw the first iMessage on his phone with this girl that was muted, and it's right then that red flags started to go off in my head. I immediately was brought to tears and I ran to the bathroom and I threw up from the stress. There's more to this because this isn't the first time, nor is it even the second or the third time. Last month, the same thing happened. His plan goes the same way, where he casually mentions that he made a new friend in his class and that's that. But then he starts talking about the girl a little too much for comfort. I'll get curious and look at his phone, but I'll snoop around and find text messages of him coming across as flirtatious and going out of his way to double text them and ask them to plan for a hangout. Now, as a side note, as this is important, throughout our entire relationship, there has never been an issue of not allowing each other to use our phones. I mean, I'll casually lend him mine for anything, and he's done the same for me as well. I mean, I have sat down with him just last month and talked to him seriously about my feelings and just how hurtful all of this is, and how I would appreciate him being honest with me instead of hiding things, and how I believe it is going too far to ask another girl to hang out one-on-one, especially without my knowledge. But I guess all these previous incidents just didn't matter to him. I've expressed to him it is borderline cheating at this point because it has happened multiple times, despite me having told him how I feel about his inappropriate behavior. This is a difference between just being friends and then being overly friendly. And I know what you're thinking. Well, why stay with him? What does he offer anyways? I should just leave. I mean, I can already hear the comments screaming this at me. And trust me, I know, guys, but it just doesn't feel that easy for me. And this is because I'm currently staying with him, as my living situation for my apartment has been catastrophic. And I don't want to go into detail about it, but it has led me to needing to stay with him more frequently. The soonest I can realistically move into a better situation is potentially May. I was planning on getting an apartment with him, but I don't know how reasonable that is anymore with this. I am extremely stressed for my future living situation. I don't want to crawl back to my apartment that I have right now because of a number of reasons, but if I have to, I could try. I just don't know how to muster strength for it. Additionally, he has been my rock for everything. It's really difficult because I've gone through a lot of awful experiences in my life already, and he has helped me through the scary, dark times, and I have difficulty visualizing how I can manage without him. We have broken up before and it was ugly, but we ended up rekindling the fire and things have been fine, but not great, obviously. Now, I take this to the internet because I feel so stressed out and lost. Part of me thinks I can just suck it up and accept it for what it is. I can just move on from it and hope that I don't discover anymore. But the other half of me thinks that's just garbage. I'm already having immense difficulty with other things in my life at the moment. I mean, I'm a full-time university student, and also I support myself financially, and I have other things to worry about. So I'm worried if I should just put this on the back burner and continue to live and stay at least somewhat comfortably with my boyfriend, who has helped me through a lot, or if I should just call it quits. Because at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Yeah, it sounds like your boyfriend is like actively trying to cheat on you, and it doesn't seem like any conversation you're having with him is at all getting through his thick skull. This guy is clearly trying to get with other women. Like, he is actively flirting with them via text messaging, and he's going out of his way to like find new women to befriend and be like, oh, I found a new friend, and you know it's always a woman. It's always the same story every single time. He does this sketchy stuff, then you find out about it and have a talk with him, and then maybe he gets better for like a week or two, but then it's right back to the same situation where he's finding another girl world a text and it's just like, when does it end? So yeah, in my opinion, your boyfriend definitely sounds super sketchy and it doesn't sound like he's being faithful at all. And I wouldn't even call this like borderline cheating. It really does sound like cheating, and in my opinion, you definitely do not deserve that in the slightest. Am I the jerk for not sending a message to my stepdad that his brother passed away? Because right now I'm being called a jerk despite the fact that I went no contact with him for over 10 years. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so for a bit of background, my stepdad and I got on fine initially when my mother was around, but sadly, she passed away 13 years ago. From the moment she passed away, he stopped being a father figure. My brother moved in with my grandma, and I decided to stay at our house. I guess it was the last reminder of my mom, and I didn't want to give up my home. My stepdad would leave the house for weeks, leaving like $30 for me to buy food, and if I'm lucky enough, for electricity and gas. And I was 15 at the time. At that time, I accepted that he was going through as much grief as me and just kind of accepted it. He is from Jamaica, and in his words, at 15, I was a man. I would have my friends around sometimes just to be around other people, and he would come home every once in a while, but ultimately left me to fend for myself for weeks and months at a time. Then, when he found a new partner and his kids came to England from America, which by the way was a complete surprise to all of us in my family as we didn't know that he had kids, he started wanting me to look after his kids during my half terms, which I refused because as far as I was concerned, it was not my job to feed them or to even look after his kids while he would go out with his friends. Eventually, he asked me to leave the house. My family on my mother's side was furious, but in the end, I left to live with my grandma. Since that day, I have refused to interact or talk to him. I don't have severe anger towards him, but I just don't want to talk to him ever again. Moving on to the present day, and last week my aunt found out my stepdad's brother had passed away. While I have no personal issues with my stepdad's brother, I really don't know the man. I saw him like 5 times when my mom was alive, and then never spoke to him again as he just wasn't ever around. My aunt strangely has been making a massive deal about it, about how no one on my mother's side of the family has reached out to him more, and in particular, she is upset and disappointed that I chose not to message my stepdad, and I made it clear that while I don't wish him any ill will, I have not spoken to that man for over a decade and I would like to stay that way. My brother has informed me that she has constantly mentioned how what I did is wrong, but I feel like I set my boundaries and I just want zero interactions with that man. But maybe I'm wrong, I'm honestly not sure. So I need to know, am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? I don't think you're the jerk at all. It doesn't sound like your stepdad was a very good dad at all, and this is all simply because he left you for weeks on end with very little money. Like, I don't know about you, but $30 for several weeks is not that much. And especially for like a teenager to be left in that situation, like I know if I was 15 in that scenario, I would not know what to do. Like at that age, I wouldn't have nearly enough life experience to have anything figured out, let alone be forced to live by myself without any kind of parental figure to like guide me and help me get stuff done. And I'm sure others probably could figure that out when they were 15 years old, and to them, I congratulate you for being that mature at that age, but there's no way I could do that if I was in the original poster's shoes. So with all things considered, I don't blame you for having no contact with your stepdad because he really did not care about you in the slightest. And in my opinion, anyone who's like, wow, how could you cut him off like that? Those people very clearly turned a blind eye to him basically neglecting you. And that is something that you absolutely did not deserve. My best friend of 10 years always seems to be envious of everyone and everything, including me. And after dealing with this recently, I'm now questioning our friendship, as at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so we've been friends for almost 10 years, and this is probably the first time I have ever considered cutting her off. Essentially, my friend is an envious person. She's admitted to it in the past. When she sees people with luxury bags, shoes, lifestyle, and traveling around, she feels jealous and wants the same for herself. I can't say I relate, but I do understand why she feels this way. This used to bother me, as she has been the interim breadwinner for her family ever since she had a job, and I chalked it up to that. And the jealousy is never towards me or any of our close friends, but it's more on the kind of stuff that people brag about on social media. I have also known her to be a kind person and an amazing friend. She's the kind of person that would drop everything for you if you tell her you need her. She really is a sister to me. She got promoted at work about 2 years ago or so with a significant addition to her pay, and I was ecstatic to see her fulfill the life that she wants for herself, as I know how important it is for her to experience the things that she always seemed to only see in other people. So she did exactly that. She bought the things that she used to tell me about and traveled to places places her social media friends have gone to and go to all the new and trending restaurants. I mean, heck, I'd even indulge with her every now and then. However, recently I noticed that every conversation we have is her picking on people we don't even know, and the comments would be her saying stuff like, "Why is her Instagram story like that? The colors don't even complement each other." Or she'll say, "How tacky is it to wear 5-inch heels at the mall?" It's just this petty, judgmental stuff, and I would not react to what she said as to not further enable her, but I would simply remain quiet. The real issue is when she started saying she was jealous of my achievements as well. I had a hefty pay raise recently that I fought tooth and nail for. Hence, I was ecstatic to treat her and one of my other friends to dinner because they truly saw me through this feat and gave me the confidence to ask for what I deserve. Upon sharing the news, her response was to say, "Wow, I'm so jealous. I have a higher role than you and you probably already match my salary." Now, this comment really caught my attention because, as I've mentioned earlier, she wasn't like this to her close friends, and she would often say that she would never see us as competition because we are closest friends. What she said to me felt off, but I gave her the benefit of the doubt and I just let it go. The biggest blow to our friendship was an opportunity that I've been looking forward to travel outside the country for work. This would require me to travel to a different continent and spend a good amount of time that is paid for by our company. But by no means am I vacationing, as I will be there strictly for work. When I stupidly shared what I thought was good news, she said it again. "Wow, I'm so jealous of you that you're going to another country. That's one that I've dreamed of going to, and you're gonna be there before me. I want to go as well." Mind you, this country has only come up in conversation before when I'm telling her how much I want the opportunity to work there. So this time I decide to say something. I spoke calmly and I said, "Hey, we always said we'd never compare ourselves to each other. If you want, you can come with me and we can explore on the weekends." And after I said that, there was absolute dead silence. She acted like she didn't hear me, and we sat across from each other for 45 minutes without speaking. The next time we saw each other, she told me about her flight and itinerary to the same country I was going to. No mention of my offer to go together because she's planning to book her flight ahead of mine. This felt really gross to me because up until this point, I thought that the jealousy towards material stuff is actually motivating her to work harder, but I would have never deemed it could be done with malice, more so against me, like ever. What's really throwing me off is that she was unwilling to even talk about it, which really leads me to believe that she is aware of her awful behavior and she is consciously or even unconsciously admitting that she is jealous of me in situations when I have good things to share. I don't know about you, but I believe that when people around you wish ill of you or pray for your downfall, that negatively lingers. And if you are incapable of feeling happiness towards your friend's achievements, how much of the friendship is still left in that? So I'm now left trying to figure out how to approach this because at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Yeah, your friend sounds super toxic. I'm just gonna say this outright. She can't celebrate anything that you have in your life without feeling jealous that she doesn't have it as well. Like, this just doesn't sound like a good friend at all. And as someone who has dealt with people like this in my own life in varying degrees, I can tell you that from personal experience, that jealousy soon becomes resentment on her end towards you, especially if you're doing better than her. And it's so funny because you've never acted this way towards her at all. Like, you've never flipped this around and acted jealous towards her for all the money that she's gotten. Instead, you've celebrated with her and said that's awesome. So it's really unfortunate that she can't do the same. And hopefully this gets worked out sooner than later. Am I the jerk for not wanting to make cheesecake for another family event? Because right now, my mom is angry at me. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I'm a 19-year-old female and I still live with my family. And for a bit of background, my parents have a pretty nice house. So usually for most family gatherings, people come to our house for the festivities. My parents are normally kind and understanding people and do give me choices on what I want to do. So about 2 years ago, I went to New York City and my mom ended up buying me a cheesecake cookbook from one of the restaurants they have. I fell in love with this cookbook and it's now my favorite cookbook that I own. When I returned from my trip, I made a standard cheesecake from the book, it being a baked cheesecake with a sponge cake crust. It was a hit with my parents, so my mom asked me if I could make it for Thanksgiving that year, so I agreed. Again, it was a hit with my family and everyone complimented me on it. Now, the cheesecake itself is very time consuming, taking almost 3 hours, including prep, mixing, and baking, and it's very stressful because if one thing goes wrong, the whole cheesecake will suffer. Even if you mess up the cooling process, the cake can crack or get soggy. It used to be fun, but now I hate having to mask it every time we have a holiday. Now, I went to the kitchen mostly looking for something to make myself for dinner, and I saw cream cheese in the fridge, and I ended up up sighing heavily. I was planning on hanging out with friends, but because I forgot all about the cheesecake, that means I may end up having to come home early. And this is just to make sure that I have enough time to make this stupid cake. My mom asked me what's wrong, and I tell her in these exact words: I'm going to have to come home early because now I have to make the cheesecake. And I will admit it, I did say this in a bit of an annoyed tone. My mom then got all defensive with me, saying how everyone loves my cheesecake and how I would be letting everyone down if I didn't make it. She then called me lazy and did the little passive-aggressive, fine, have it your way. And when she said this, I was so shocked I just couldn't even speak. She just continued to rant to me how she was going to figure out a way for there to be a cheesecake. I ended up telling her that I didn't say I wasn't going to make it, but that it is annoying that I'm always making this cheesecake only when she wants me to. I can't bake when I want to, but when it comes to this cheesecake for family gatherings, it's all of a sudden a family tradition. I know everyone likes my cheesecake, but it's also such an annoying recipe, and it causes me stress to make sure nothing goes wrong with it. Should I just make it to make everybody else happy? Am I being selfish right now? What should I do? No, I don't think you're being selfish or the jerk. Like, this really is kind of like obnoxious at this point, and it's almost expected instead of people like asking you to try and make it for them. Like, if they asked you ahead of time, then probably you would be more inclined to be like, yeah, sure, let me plan on it and then we can just get it done. But the fact that your mom and your family have all these ingredients and they're almost shoving it at you and saying, here, make the cheesecake, with no regard to how long it takes you to make it in the first place, in my opinion, is just so inappropriate. So I think you could make the cheesecake this time, but then say, hey, in the future, if you want me to make this, then you need to tell me well in advance, because having this sprung on you at the last second is just not fair. And if I was in your shoes, I would feel the exact same way. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist at the top of the description. And if you want some chill music to put on in the background, check out easymode.com. If you like Am I the Jerk, subscribe to Am I the Genius. Everything will be linked down below in the description.